Welcome to another video. To this video I'm gonna finish bolting some of the things up to the Coyote here on the Challenger. Stay tuned. So I went ahead and already took off the lifting points that I had fabricated to lift the engine here. There's one here, one on the corner, so those are out of here already. Motor's completely bolted on. You know, this is what it looks like now, so pretty good amount of clearance. What I'm gonna do now is I have the starter here ready to go on there. I was trying different size bolts, so I have a couple different sizes, but it looks like this is what I'm gonna go with. They have enough, you know, going through to bolt on. I can put these longer ones, but one of the holes doesn't really go all the way in, but I'd rather just have all three the same. So I'm gonna put the starter on. I'm actually gonna fit the header really quick, see what I end up. I know before I thought I was gonna have to dent one of the tubes here on this area here, so I'm just gonna make sure that I need to do that, and then if I have clearance to put the starter after the headers, I think it'd be easier to maybe install the headers before doing the starter. The other thing I'm gonna do is put the transmission dipstick back on there and bolt it with the bell housing bolt. That one's not tight, and then the transmission lines as well. Pretty of clearance back there. If you can kind of see the transmission, that corner has, it's a little bit closer, but it still has about half an inch before it hits the firewall on this corner right up here, so it's okay. And then what I'm gonna do today also is get this steering shaft, the whole steering wheel out. I have to cut it with the QA1 kit, weld a universal joint at the end, and then run that, as well as figure out, once I cut it, if I have, the header was up against the shaft there when I was test fitting it before, but also I'm gonna cut most of that off, so we'll have to figure out, you know, if there's a little bit of clearance I have to make, maybe move the shaft or just dent one of the tubes. So let's get started. Long tube headers in here. To be 100% honest, these feet fit decently well. It's more of a, I'm struggling just because I'm trying to be down here and kind of have my body out of the way. But from what I can see right now, I have about 1/4 inch clearance actually, because I ended up moving the engine, tilting it to the driver's side from the back, and then pushing it towards the driver's side. So I can get the starter in here after the header really easy. Even I think the transmission line. So I think what I'm gonna do is just get a little rag, clean the where the gasket's gonna go, get my gasket, and then just install this header. I mean, that's the next part, so I'll go ahead and might as well do that. No, this car hasn't even been parked here that long, and freaking spiders are really making a bunch of spider webs on it. It's probably because they know, hey, this car sat for like 20 years. It's probably gonna happen again. Let's just make a bunch of spider webs in it. Alright, so I'm gonna grab the gasket and then get this header on there. So I do have the 1/4 inch here on the back, and then right here also about 1/4 inch, so no problem. You know, on an engine they usually tilt, well, they do tilt this way, but I don't think there's going to be that much movement on the motor mounts, just because they're, you know, they just have the rubber on the bottom. We'll see once it's running, but as of right now there's 1/4 inch clearance, so I think that'll be enough. For now, if anything, I could always dent those tubes later on if I have to, but as of right now they're not touching on anything, which was the main part. So let me get that gasket and we'll throw it on there. And I'm just using a little bit of steel wool to clean around the ports here, mostly because I had painted this and there's some paint here. I painted the engine block, so that's why there's some paint. Overall, the engine's pretty clean, so kind of hard to do this with one person. I mean, not too bad, but just holding the gasket in place is kind of the little bit harder part. You don't want to mess it up. Normally I put the copper RTV on gaskets for the headers, but just because of this material, I don't know, I'm not gonna do that this time. If I do have to change this gasket for different ones, then I'll definitely probably put some of that copper RTV on there. Oh boy, I think you know what, I didn't check this before, but I don't think these are the right bolts. Pretty certain these are not the right bolts. Of course. Alright, I guess gotta stop for a minute and purchase bolts. These are the bolts that came with the kit, and I'm pretty sure these engines take this thread pitch. That's what happens when you get cheap headers, I guess. So these are the studs, pretty sure, that came out of the engine. Go check, which makes sense because the holes on the header are pretty big. Let's see here. So they're a lot thicker. These bolts are, well, they're about the same, but not the right thread. So gonna have to get new bolts for that. So hardware store only had these big bolts that were on the right thread. I ordered some online, but they won't be here for a couple days. So I'm just gonna try to put a couple of these wherever I can get these to fit, just because they have a big head. So usually the header bolts, they have like a washer, but the head is pretty small. And so I have some of those coming. So I'm just gonna put a couple bolts to get the headers bolted on in place, and then I can always just sneak in all the other bolts once I get them. Just that way I can continue, you know, putting the starter and all that stuff. So I'm gonna put 2 bolts on this one, 2 on the other one, and then let me start with this one and I'll show you what it looks. Okay, so I got this header on here, and I guess with the little bit of thickness of the gasket, it's not 100% touching right here, but it's, I mean, almost. This spot here does have like a 1/4 inch, but right here. So I'm gonna take it off and then just try to, I'm gonna mark it, but try to notch, or you know, just hit it, heat it up and hit it so it's a little bit dented. And the frame, it's also about a 1/4 inch down there, but that's not too bad. Just you know, I'm thinking right there it might hit right away. I might just try to hit this little spot here a little bit, just to kind of avoid anything, but I'm gonna take it off and then hit that and see if I can mend it. So I went ahead and took the steering column out already. I do have that universal joint kind of mocked in there. That's probably where it's gonna go. I do have to make a little bit of clearance there on the firewall, but pretty simple. There's just this piece that goes down there. I think, which way was it? Like so, I believe. And then the steering column actually bolts in here. So I am gonna modify this just slightly bit, but it should clear the headers just with a little bit of moving around. So once I get that done, I'll show you guys what the finished product's gonna look like. It's gonna consist of, it looks like cutting a new plate and then moving this just slightly so it clearances. But it'll pretty much stay just a little bit off from where it was, but that'll make it work. Okay, so I made this plate here. It's dry and I just painted black. So I used the piece that centers the shaft here. I cut it off the original piece and welded it on here. Just kind of tacked it around. And then I made the backing piece bigger because the other one was smaller here. So 2 things I did with this one. I moved this down a little bit, and then I made this big to cover the hole for the clutch pedal rod, and there was another for a clutch, like a clutch safety switch or something. That way it covers those holes underneath the column, and I don't have to worry about, you know, having those exposed there. Now I can always drill through there if I need to, you know, put any wiring or anything, but for right now I'm just gonna cover them. I also removed the clutch pedal, so there's a rod that goes all the way through if yours is a manual. And the rod, you know, it's very precise here on all 3 pieces, so even if you remove the clutch pedal, I mean the brake pedal is still good. I do need to get a new master cylinder, so that's why I removed it right now, since I kind of had everything off. I did remove the fresh air duct as well because that was on the way, and I mean it's just rusted all under there, but that's a problem for another time. So I did put the bearing here on the column to keeps it, you know, straight. And then I am gonna just fit this one more time once that dries, just to make sure this is the right length, so I can tack it just to make sure before I weld it fully. And then the little, you know, universal joint too has to be pretty much welded on there. So that's almost all set. I do have the clutch rod and the pedal. I am gonna save that, just I don't know for what, but for the time being I will. What I'm gonna do now is take the header off, and I think I showed this already, but where I kind of bent it a little bit, I'm just gonna bend it slightly more, just so I have a little bit more, since I'm gonna take it off one last time before I put the bolts. So I did get some MMR bolts. This is from Modular Motorsports Racing. So I've got the bolts here. These are a little bit longer, so this is what I need. The nice thing with these is, unlike the ones I bought at the hardware store, they I have to open this, but they actually have a smaller head and then kind of like a washer built in, you know, similar to these kind of bolts, but they're the right thread because it's the bigger thread. So I'll get those on there and pretty much, and then put the other header on the other side on. Steering column is gonna clear as of this little bit of modification I made here. It should clear the header actually without even bending anything. The only tube that I may need to bend slightly, and if you can kind of see it, it's the one right there, just where that shaft's gonna go up. So once I get all that set, I'll see if I need to just give it a little bend, but it shouldn't be much. Everything should clear here. And then I did look, and this is for a later episode, but they do sell a conversion to make it power brakes. The booster it's a smaller one, not a big one like on the trucks, kind of like the one I put in my 67. But the nice thing on that is, with that booster, there's a bracket that kind of brings it from here to up here, and I think that will clear with the master cylinder being around here. I'm gonna try to do that for the brakes, just because I think power brakes will be way better than manual brakes, especially, you know, having a little bit more power. So we'll see if that works out. But let me get that other header installed, and then I'll show you what it looks like once it's in there. All right, so the header on the passenger side, it's all bolted on there. I did just hit this a little bit more, so there is a good 1/4 inch all the way of clearance there, which is pretty good for, you know, everything. It shouldn't move too much and hit on the side. So I'm gonna move to this other side now. I'm going to go ahead and bolt that plate there, put the steering column in, and just double check the U-joint, make sure that it's good there, and then I'll weld it to get it all hooked up to the linkage. Okay, went ahead and got the steering column all bolted back on there. So that's the plate I made. So you can see it fits on the factory bolts, and it covers the holes for the where the clutch rod and all that went. So I'm gonna put a piece of foam behind it, you know, at a later time. Right now, I mean, there's holes all around, so no big deal. Steering column is mounted, so there's the steering wheel. I already actually lifted the front and turned it, so there's the steering shaft, and really everything almost looks factory here, except, you know, where I cut the firewall. When I replace the firewall, then, you know, I just have to cut the other one the same way. But so you can see here, these holes will be covered. There's no there's enough clearance for the shaft there. And then the header, I did bolt this one on all the way now with those bolts, and I just hit the piece of the header there a little bit just to give it more clearance. There's plenty of clearance Even if I would have not hit it, it would have been fine, but I just gave it a little bit extra. There is a little bit of adjustment too on the steering column. I can actually unbolt it down there and pull it up, so that will make this go up a little bit and take it away from the frame rail just slightly. It would make it closer on the header, but there's clearance, so I can move that, but it's not hitting right now, so it doesn't really matter. I went ahead and also installed this transmission cooler lines, which are the ones that I had bought for my 67. They're off of Fox Body, but they fit the transmission. They actually bolted right in here, so you know they go around the engine pretty good. I'm still gonna have to figure them out front here. I'll probably hold them down to the oil pan here just so they're held in place, but I'll probably just put the transmission cooler on that side since they go all the way across. There's no reason for me to try bend the lines this way. They'll probably kink. I can just put the cooler over there. And then I also installed the starter, so use those bolts that I mentioned before and bolt it on there. There is clearance from the exhaust manifold. There's just a really spot here there where the solenoid is, but it's still about a 1/4 inch from the headers, so there's enough clearance there. So all that is all set, looking good. So the next plan here is to grab a battery that I have and my jumper cables. I'm gonna put oil on the engine because I drained it, and I'm just gonna jump the starter and turn it over, make sure everything is turning okay with the flex plate and everything, and then make sure it's engaging in that flywheel correctly. I'm gonna do that. I'm also gonna put power. I believe this is the main power that went into the dash from in here. I just want to see if, you know, if I put power, if like the lights are working, maybe like the wiper motor, if it works. That's really the only thing that's going to be from the car. You know, the lights, the wiring for the lights. So, you know, see if the switches work and everything. So I'm going to do that next video, and then I'm going to be going to the you know, U-pull and pick parts and get another drive shaft, or at least a joke to make this one work, and a shifter. That would make everything kind of complete until I get the computers to control the engine. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Subscribe to the channel, helps out a lot. We'll see you in the next one.